Hey, fellow psychos, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about season 2, episode 6 of Psych. If you're enjoying the show, please remember to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends.
All right, we got to give a shout out to our listeners. Specifically, we have to give a shout out to our Psych Fanatics of Facebook followers. Love you guys. Thank you for following and still listening to the show. We appreciate the support, as well as our Reddit followers who are our newer listeners. Yeah, thanks for coming back.
Yes.
We also got to give a shout out to both of our guys, Dulé Hill and James Rode Rodriguez. Their shows on Wednesday night on ABC, and it's not the same show, but the same night and the same network.
And they both premiered this week.
Yep.
So
Check
by the
them out.
time you guys hear this, they've been on for a couple weeks now.
Yeah, give them some support. We also want to do a fan email. We got another one in. This one's from Scully. You guys are doing a great job. Listening to you break down the episodes make me want to rewatch them for stuff I missed the last million times I watched them. I think you're being too hard on yourselves for the first season podcast. They were all entertaining to me, and I personally don't think any of them should be skipped. I look forward to hearing your breakdown of Bounty Hunters in a few weeks, since that is my top 5. Listening right now, and it's Mary from Florida. P.S. I can't believe y'all didn't like Psy versus Psy. Come on, son.
I thought that was a cute email. Very nice. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Yep.
We appreciate that. So kind of you.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily hate we don't hate the first season or anything. We just think that if there's a new listener, they might, especially the first like 1 or 2 episodes, might be a little raw and unpolished, and we didn't, we never done anything like this before, and we're hoping that it doesn't seem too amateur to keep people like listening. So that's why we recommended jumping into season 2 after we've had a little bit of experience, and this is more of the standard, and we've got the editing more down, and it's by all means not perfect, but we're a little more experienced. So that's all we intended by it. We did enjoy doing season 1 a lot, and yeah, it was good.
Yeah, I think it had to do a little bit with our comfort level too. So we're much more comfortable now. But thank you for that really great email. We appreciate it and hope
also
you
Bounty Hunters
enjoy listening. Oh, yeah.
It's a good episode.
That is a good episode. That is a very good episode.
All right. So let's get down into the episode stats. What do we got this week?
So this episode is titled Meat is Murder, but Murder is Also Murder. It originally aired on August 17th, 2007. It was written by Steve Franks, I'm hoping I'm going to say this right, Daniel Hessia, and Andy Berman, and it was directed by Eric Laneville. We know Steve Franks and Andy Berman well now. This is the first time we're seeing Daniel Hessia as a writer here. He does not have a very long list of credits. I was super surprised when I was researching him. It looks like he had 11 credits in the writing category, including some episodes of Four Kings, Andy Barker, PI, and 2 episodes of Psych. This one, and There's Something About Mira, he also co-wrote on. That's from a future season. And then he has done some more directing, but nothing else I was familiar with. So that was I really was shocked that he had so little there. Our director, Eric Laneville, has a long list of directing credits, including many other shows that I love. He started directing back in 1986. Some of the shows he worked on are Saint Elsewhere. It was a hospital show. L.A. Law with Corbin Burnson. Doogie Howser, M.D., NYPD Blue, Gilmore Girls, Monk, Prison Break, Lost, Royal Pains, Warehouse 13, Hawaii Five-0, The Mentalist, the NCIS franchise, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and of course Blue Bloods, and even James's new show, A Million Little Things. He directed 2 episodes of Psych. It was this one, and then also Gus Walks Into a Bank, which I love that episode. And he has also 53 acting credits, including many of the shows that he directed. A regular role on St. Elsewhere, and guest starring roles on things like ER, Scrubs, and Blue Bloods, just to name a few. So he's had quite the career, a lot there under his belt.
Yeah, it's a good lineup.
Yeah.
Especially there with the Monk, Royal Pains, Warehouse 13. Well,
Yeah.
Mentalist too, but I loved Warehouse 13. That's similar to this show. It's got
I
like a
know.
special little place. It's such a unique show, and the
I
cast
didn't
is
love
so
it.
good. See, that was
I
one
didn't
I
love
was
it, but
thinking about
I
us,
never saw
maybe
the
looking into as like once
yeah.
we're done with Psych, maybe going to Warehouse 13, maybe. I
Well,
don't know about a cult
I would be
following for it though. I'm
willing.
not sure how deep that rabbit hole goes, but it was one I was thinking about as a possibility.
Yeah. I would be willing to watch I
Try it.
never saw the
Mhm.
whole thing, so I would be willing to do a watch episode kinda thing, so,
Mhm. Okay.
that's interesting.
Alright.
I should probably give it another shot. I don't know.
Mm.
Anyway, Matthew, do we have an episode synopsis this week?
Yes, we do.
All right.
Let's see. Gus's uncle Burton is in town, and due to a misunderstanding, Gus's whole family thinks that he is the psychic detective. Gus didn't correct them in time, so he either has to roll with it or face the humiliation of admitting that he is just the assistant. Sean decides to help his friend by portraying him as the psychic for the case, and they skillfully work the case of the poisoned food critic while keeping everyone under the guise of Gus being the psychic.
Nice.
Mm.
Nice. All right, should we dive in?
Yeah, let's get into it. I like
All
this
right.
episode. We can line it up.
Okay, so we open this episode with a flashback from 1987. Henry's walking down the stairs. There's a mess in the kitchen, and here's little Sean telling him that he has baked his favorite banana nut muffins. But it's very obvious to Henry that Sean did not bake them. That
Hmm.
he is just like there's a mess in that kitchen, but Sean did not do it. So he knows that Gus is in the pantry and that Gus really baked them. And this is where we get our Henry lesson for the week. And that is Sean, a lie always leads to more lies. So Gus knows he'd be in trouble too if he doesn't leave. I love how he like ran out of the kitchen. He dropped the whisk on the table and ran. It was cute.
I did love that. I don't know, just the chemistry with. I didn't think about it before, but yeah, the
Mhm.
chemistry with Henry and Liam, like the young Sean.
Yeah.
It's and even with young Gus too. They're both they have this really good chemistry, and I just really I don't know. That's something I kind of knew before, but I never really thought about it deeper than that. Because I know James and Henry
Yeah.
both, or James and Henry, Sean and Henry are both. They have good chemistry too. Like they have this really good like father son type
Mhm.
relationship built. But it's like that with the kid too, and I think it's just because I believe them as the characters. I thought, oh yeah, he's gonna have it with the younger version, but that's not actually his younger version. So I thought it was interesting to point out this time. I kind of inferred that his relationship with the young Sean would be good because his relationship with old Sean is good.
So
Mm.
it's interesting that you say that. When you said that, I'm like picturing them together,
Yeah.
and I agree because both of the kids legitimately look like they have respect and fear for Henry.
Yes.
You ever know,
Mhm.
like in their
Oh yeah.
faces, they're like, oh, like they did a very good job with it.
One
That's
of the
an
ones I loved for the
interesting observation.
flashbacks was the one with the Weekend Warriors, where they're in their scouts thing and they're going to look for the rocket.
Mhm.
I thought it was a very good like a father son like moment for them
Mhm.
where I don't know they were having fun, but he was also teaching them something and he was tough on them, but also kind. And yeah, I thought it was a really good moment that like a really good another one of those good chemistry moments too.
I love the one with
Yeah.
the bikes. So, yeah, I mean, I can with the From Zero to Murder. Yeah,
Hmm.
very you're right. They have very good chemistry, but I never really thought about it much either until you just said it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay, at 1 minute 33 seconds, we are at the psych office outside, and we see that Gus has his Uncle Burton with him. And Sean arrives and tells Gus that they have a case. Well, Gus immediately goes into a little bit of a panic because he's not told Sean that Gus's family all thinks that Sean is the psychic detective, or that, I'm sorry, that Gus is the psychic detective and Sean is his assistant. But Sean immediately is like, okay, I have a plan. Let's do this. They're going to take Uncle Burton along on the case.
Hmm. And I thought this was cool because I guess one thing I also want to mention is that he plays it as like just the assistant, but Gus has to do and deal with quite a bit, even if it's not apparent to everybody else. he shouldn't
Mhm.
feel like he's just the assistant either.
No.
But I think part of it is that his family, obviously, part of it is that his family might think that he's just the assistant, but
Mhm.
it's just a, I don't know. I don't know why I don't
Well,
know. I
they
just
don't
don't know
know
why
that
he's so
he's
down
really
on
an
himself.
he's been an integral part
Yeah,
of
he's kind of a sleeper
almost
though,
every case.
because he has
Yeah.
to be kind of in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah, well, because he knows that the only way people are gonna believe it is if Sean really is doing the heavy
Yeah,
lifting in other people's eyes, but behind the scenes, he does a lot. He knows a lot that Sean would not otherwise know.
yeah, and
So,
yeah,
yeah.
he's been integral to several
Yeah.
episodes with his information.
Yeah, his knowledge
It should
about
also,
everything, coins and medicine and safes and all. I mean, they
yeah,
wouldn't be able to do it without him. So,
it should also be mentioned that Uncle Burton is guest starred by John Amos, and I
oh,
think
we're
that
gonna
he
talk
was
about him.
perfectly cast in this role. It's very
Yes.
similar to how I felt about Ewing in the other one. What was that episode? Oh, it was similar to the way I felt about Ewing in Psy versus Psy. I loved his character. I thought it was perfect
Uh-huh.
casting. I thought the character like design and personality was really good.
You're
I
talking
like
about
this
Lou
one
Diamond
too.
Phillips, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I thought
Okay.
Uncle Burton's character was really good, obnoxious at some points, but I thought
Yeah.
it was a good choice. And I love the dynamic of no matter where Gus is, he's always like looked at as like an underachiever. His
Yes.
parents, we'll find out later on, see him as like a little kid still. His uncle sees him as like, the assistant who doesn't want to use his name. Everybody kind of sees him as like an underachiever,
They
even though he's
underestimate
super
Gus.
intelligent. Yeah, he's underestimated.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, so I thought that was great casting. I thought it was an interesting choice to make the uncle like
Well,
that.
it also makes you think if they think he's an underachiever, what is everybody else in his family doing?
Yeah.
Like
Well, we
like
already know
really,
that.
what is the bar? Is the bar
Yeah.
really that high? You know what I mean?
Well, we know about
Well,
Joy later
I
on, but
I know, but we're just, not everyone knows about that yet.
yeah.
I will add a note here that when you're talking about guest stars, I think what's happened here is that we've gotten to the second season of the show and there was popularity, and now they're
Mhm.
getting more guest stars that are
Higher
um
tier.
right, higher tier.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I
With
that's
some
an
name
interesting.
recognition, and they're spreading around
Yeah.
now, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah. Mhm.
Okay. So
Oh, we
uh
also kinda skipped over that, Uncle Burton is kind of bitter that he's kinda bitter with Gus because Gus doesn't use his name even though they're both named Burton. Gus goes by Gus instead, and he kinda looks at it as like, "What, my name's not good enough for you?" So, that's
mhm.
part of the reason why he's already inclined to be kinda have a negative attitude towards Gus.
Yes. Well, they take Uncle Burton to the crime scene, and we're at about 4 minutes 52 seconds here. Buzz McNabb is there, and he's telling them he's not sure if Uncle Burton is really allowed at the crime scene. And this is when we sort of find out that Uncle Burton is really up on the crime scene lingo. And he kind of schools Buzz. He's like, there's no crime scene tape, there's no forensics people collecting evidence, and all this. And poor McNabb is just like, okay. Like, but if you look exactly where I paused when I was making my notes, exactly where I paused, it showed Gus's face. And after his uncle did that, he had this like smirk, like, yeah, like he was proud of him for knowing all of that.
Did he
It
touch
was
his
pretty
nose? Did he
cool.
do the thumb across the
He
nose?
didn't he didn't do the thumb across his nose. He just was like, "Yeah, look at that." It was very brief, but it happened to be exactly where I'm not sure I would have noticed it if I hadn't paused right there, but it was like he was proud of his uncle for, like, schooling Buzz about that. It
On a
was pretty
side
cool.
note, how
Mhm.
cool is it that we talked to Buzz McNabb? We got to
It's
interview Buzz McNabb. How cool is it?
it's
Every time I see him
incredibly
on the show,
cool.
I'm like, "Oh, we talked to him. That's so cool."
Okay, and I just got a black lab, a new puppy.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and this is the coolest thing ever, right? And I didn't name her, okay? I have one black lab that's 5, and his name is Gilbert. We didn't pick that name either, but he's great. So we said, "Let's get another black lab, Gilbert needs a friend." And in comes this little puppy, is 5 months old, and she's so cute, and her name is Sage.
I know.
And
That's
it's so
crazy.
perfect.
That is so crazy.
When I first texted Matthew about it, he's like, "I love the name." And I'm going, "I wish I could take credit for naming her that, but it already happened." But it was perfect. After we interviewed Sage, it was great. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so cool that we got to talk to somebody from the show, and
Yes.
hopefully we'll do it again. But if anybody didn't catch the interview, it's on the channel. We have the video version on YouTube. You can
Yeah.
check that out in the description.
That was a good
But
interview.
I
Yeah.
every time I see Sage now, I'm like, oh, we talked to him. That's
I
awesome.
know.
Sorry.
And like I want to talk to him
Um,
again.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, at this scene, in this scene, he's wrong. Okay, you can't just come in and spout all this stuff out. That they're on private property. This is that guy's house, and whether or not it's declared a homicide or an accidental death, you don't just get to like walk into people's house or on potential crime scenes.
Right.
So while it was an interesting scene, I wouldn't be doing my job here if we didn't just point out anything that seemed a little too much. That was a little too much.
Yeah, but that's
But
where you get
Buzz's reaction
buzzed.
was very Buzz-like, and he's just like,
Yes.
"I gotta go." And he just
Yes.
removes himself from that situation.
Yeah, particularly early on like this. He's
Yeah.
very passive.
Mhm.
Very passive. So,
Yep.
okay, so Jules comes into the room that they're in and meets Uncle Burton. She makes a comment about using the name Burton, and Uncle, like, she didn't understand. She's like, "Oh, Burton Custer," and Uncle Burton then makes a comment about using the name Burton proudly. He's seriously showing all through this episode how mad that makes him.
Mhm.
And then we find out that the case itself is sort of unveiled here. So Vince Wagner, who is the restaurant critic for the paper, dies suddenly after eating his wife's chicken soup, and apparently the wife, like, she's acting a little suspicious.
Well, apparently he just wasn't a great husband. He was kind of rude to her, and he treated her just like everybody else. Like, he was just constantly grading everything she did, and that gave us some reason to suspect her.
We
But
find
at
out she never got past 2
5:58,
stars.
yeah. But at 5:58,
How horrible
Sean,
is that? I'm
that
sorry.
it's kind of messed up. Although it makes me wonder how they really got married to begin with. Like,
Ugh.
was he always like this when he got the food critic job? Did he change? I don't know.
I mean, he would have to have changed.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, 2 stars.
But at 5:58, Sean is psyched to see Gus play the psychic, and Gus is absolutely terrified. He's letting him. I love that he's letting him do this. Like, Sean is letting Gus do this, like giving him the spotlight in like Gus's moment of need. Even though
Mhm.
Gus doesn't really want to do it, that's even better. He's pushing him to do it because he
Yeah.
knows it's going to be a good thing for him. And I think it shows it's one of the few opportunities that Sean has that to show Gus how good of a friend he is when Gus is always supporting him and like
Yeah.
working his jokes and like taking his setups for like distractions and all that stuff. So I think it's a good theme for this episode, giving an episode to Gus. I thought that was cool.
I think he knows too, like, how important, because it's important for Sean to impress his dad, he gets that it's important for Gus to impress his family and particularly his uncle. So
Sure.
it's like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, he gets what that position is like, and he's helping him to feel better in the
Mhm.
situation. So, but Gus is seriously nervous about pretending to be the psychic. So they're in the kitchen of the house, and Sean gives him a quick lesson.
Yeah.
And
He's like jumping
yeah,
around.
yeah, he's like, all you have to do is make observations and then put them out there in a weird way. And so he starts looking around the kitchen and looking in the fridge and at the pots and pans and things on the counter and then whatever. And he points out all these things, like there's raw chicken next to vegetables, and the bottom of the pan's scorched, and there's a bunch of takeout in the fridge, and all of this. That, like, he's really kind of put it out there, and he's like, "Gus, what does all this mean? What does all this mean?" And Gus goes, "She was a terrible cook." And she actually heard them from the living room, but it was like he was able to, take everything. It was kind of like a course too. And how does Sean come up with everything? So
He's like,
that was a
make
cool
sure you
moment.
touch your head. It helps sell it.
Yeah. And when he starts doing I can't.
Oh, it looks
Okay.
so ridiculous. It looks like he's trying
Yeah.
to pick a hair, like, or an eyelash off of somebody's, like, shoulder, and he
Uh-huh.
puts both of those little tiny, like, hands to his head. Yeah, it's
And he's
ridiculous.
like, "I see I'm seeing something. I'm seeing something." It was so, like it was weak at best.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
was weak at best. But he gets better. He gets better.
Mhm. But, the wife, we find out, is less of a suspect, after their little interview, because we find out that she was cooking even though she was a bad cook because of a recent doctor's appointment he had, and he was not in the best place, so she was wanting to cook him healthy meals because he was always eating out at different restaurants. So, not really trying to, help somebody's health and kill them at the same time. So, the guys
Mhm.
don't really think that she's the person to look at here. It also would be way too obvious if she
Yeah.
poisoned the soup that she made and gave it to him. So, yeah.
Yeah. But as they're leaving there, Sean notices as the coroner's getting ready to zip up the black bag that the body's in, and Sean happens to notice that the victim's tongue is black. So we see them in the next scene at 8 minutes 25 seconds at the psych office, and Sean is dumping out a bunch of lollipops. He has gone to the candy emporium. He's tested them all to see any of the lollipops turn your tongue black. And Gus, in his
Infinite
wisdom
wisdom.
here.
Hmm.
Exactly. He knows that what can turn your tongue black is the ingredient in the pink stomach meds like Pepto-Bismol and things like that. So they know that this guy has had an upset stomach. Like something was bothering his stomach prior to even eating that meal. So then that's when Sean is like, this guy was murdered. And Gus is agreeing. And we see Uncle Burton really getting into it now. He's
Well,
like,
this is an
let's
interesting
go.
thing that follows throughout the whole episode is we get these
Mhm.
little moments where Uncle Burton is with them the entire time. Like
Yeah.
all these in between scenes whenever they visit crime scenes, and we get
Mhm.
to see a little bit of Uncle Burton in every single scene.
Mhm.
And it's really funny the things that he picks up on. Some scenes he's rude,
Yeah.
like, "I don't wanna if I wanted to stay in a dirty room, I would have stayed at home with my wife or something." And
Mhm.
he also points out that the place is dirty and that Sean should, being the assistant, the non-psychic assistant, he should really focus more on cleaning up the space,
Uh-huh.
that's just, delegation of labor. I mean, he should really work on that. And he's like, "You're right, Burton. The non-psychic detective should be in charge of all the cleaning," while
Yeah.
giving Gus a nice, like, clear, wide-eyed look. And
Right.
Gus is just he's not having it.
No,
He's
because
keeping his
Gus has a
cool,
lot.
but his eyes were quite emotive.
That's right. Gus also has another job. Gus is
Hmm.
busy. But in this scene, they also Sean
Sean
tells
calls him into
Gus
action. Yeah.
Sean tells Gus, "Call upon the spirits."
Hmm.
So he helps him and he gets in that like
Oh,
singing voice.
spirits, always help, willing to lend a helping hand. And he does this little thing where he like has like these arm wings where he like raises his hand up and kind of like flutters them a little bit. He looks ridiculous, and Burton comments on it. It's a little wimpy, I think is what he said. It's a little wimpy, huh?
This psychic stuff's a little wimpy.
Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
funny.
But Sean jumps behind Uncle Burton, and Gus is playing like a little game of charades now, with what
Mhm.
Sean is trying to do charades to kind of tell him what to say. And I thought it was cool because in this scene, Gus is kind of slow to get the clues,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think it's actually a good thing. I think it's
Yes.
actually really sells it the way he jumps around from like guess to guess to guess, and he does it very
Yeah.
well. And at the end of this, what happens is Gus divines that the critic was poisoned, based off of the
Yes.
black tongue. Mhm. But
Yes.
then we are at 11 minutes 40 seconds in. Burton is rude about, and he has that comment I mentioned before about the dirty office. And then that's when they head over to the police station. And Gus is now in another panic because he can't be a psychic in front of the police. And
Mhm.
Sean, he is shockingly okay with this.
Yeah,
he
well,
goes
he
through a
is
lot of
smart
risk here.
here.
Well,
But
he
he's
is
smart
very
here. He
smart.
surprised me here
Mhm.
with how he turned it around and
Yeah.
went, "We're gonna make this work.
Yes,
But
all
give
he
me a
tells him
minute in there
is,
first."
"Make sure you say poison. You were really good back in the office, but make sure you say poison, okay?"
Right.
And
But he was the way that he did that, and he's like, "Give me a minute." It was like he knew, "I need to set this up first. I need to make sure
yes,
that they're gonna buy it before you walk in."
but this was a risk, and I think that this is something interesting to point out is because it happens a couple times where it was an unnecessary risk, but Sean chooses sometimes the more difficult, riskier thing for the challenge and the glory that comes with it.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, you're risking. So what? Now you're trying to convince the police that Gus is a psychic too. Like you're risking giving up yourself,
I don't
giving up
know though,
them.
the way that he set it up was like, "I need someone who's known me forever. Maybe someone who's known me for
Yeah, but
so
that's
long to
kind of
understand."
weak. That's kind of.
It's
Oh,
kind of
I thought it was
weak,
kind of
but
weak.
all they were I don't know, I just thought it was out of all the options they had, this was pretty good way of getting them to listen,
Right. So what
you
happens
know?
is Sean says to wait here for a second and make sure you say poison. Then he goes into the office, and I love how in this scene he spouts out gibberish, like just a bunch of random words, and then he notices Lassie has a his arm in a sling, and he
Yeah.
completely breaks it. He's like he goes from his little trance to, "Oh, Lassie, what happened?" He
Did
kind
we
of did
okay,
this in the last episode too, where
but
they kind of broke
while we're
trance for a little bit.
here, why do we never find out what happened to Lassie's arm? I'm wondering if it was a real injury that Tim Omenson had.
That is possible, I
I don't
guess.
I don't know, I wondered that during the episode, and I didn't get to find out anything about it, but because I think when it was first introduced, I thought, "Well, they'll explain this later," and they didn't.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Anyway,
interesting.
just an observation. Okay, so they're in the middle of that, and Sean says, "I need someone who knows me to translate my thoughts here."
So Sean specifically states that he needs somebody who is close to him to translate for him, someone who is slightly less handsome than he is. And then he looks out the window and yells for Gus out the door.
Yes.
And Gus is then followed by his uncle. But as like he perfectly set up the timing for Gus to translate in front of Burton in a way that the police and stuff saw him as the psychic, but his uncle saw Gus as the psychic. So
Mhm,
yeah, you're right. It was a very brilliant like game of chess that they played here, and it all
mhm.
had to work out a little too perfectly, but
The
it was
timing had to be
entertaining
perfect.
and it
Yeah,
was fun. So
yeah.
I'm not gonna have any complaints about it. I thought it was
Mhm.
a fun scene.
After all, it is a TV show.
Mhm.
Right.
But the Gus does have one line thing here that I've remembered for a long time because I thought it was just a really clever thing to say. Whenever he was doing whenever he was doing his translating, he says like, "The critic ate something he wasn't supposed to. 2 bones and a skull." It was
Mhm.
very this like riddly text. I thought it was really cool because then Juliet's like poison, skull and crossbones.
Yeah,
So
and
I
he
thought it was a
also
cool little
gets
thing.
across here that it wasn't the wife,
Right.
that it was something from somewhere else. It
Hmm.
wasn't the wife. So they figure out based on like Sean remembers what he saw in the fridge. And that's where they figure out what restaurant the food must have come from because
Hmm.
it was the one on top.
Yeah. And Sean calls it the Curvier.
Yeah, the
And Gus is
Curvier.
like, "That doesn't sound like a place that serves food, Sean."
Mhm. Well, they go then Gus knows that that restaurant is Antonio's restaurant, and they go to the restaurant. They figured out where, they go there, they're in the kitchen, they're pretending to be, um, what do you call the
Food
people?
critics.
The food no,
Oh, no,
they're
health
pretending to be
inspectors.
health inspectors.
Yeah.
And so they're talking to the chef, and while they're there talking to the chef, that's when Jules and Lassie arrive, and they actually arrest the chef
Mhm.
because of mushrooms that were found in the risotto at the
The
critic's
critic's
house.
house. Mhm.
Yes, so and they find out that those mushrooms were, but what were they
Death
called?
caps.
Death caps,
Yep.
mushrooms, and that they are what was found in his stomach, and that's what killed him.
Yep.
Mhm.
So they automatically assume it was the chef here.
Right.
which, again, kind of weak. The chef's just gonna leave, like, let him take it home too, not even gonna try and get rid of the plate or anything like that. It's a little weak.
I know. Well, that's when they know that they're wrong. So Sean knows that the mushrooms were different. He sees what type of mushrooms he was using to make the risotto, and he says, "No, we've got the wrong guy." At this moment, Gus looks like he's about to cry because he is excited that he's like, "Oh, we got him. I don't have to play psychic detective anymore. This is good." And when Sean says, "Oh, we got the wrong guy," I mean, his face was like, "No."
Mhm.
And he still has to pretend to be the psychic. It's really stressing him out. He doesn't like it.
Yeah.
At 18 minutes, 25 seconds, we're back at the police station and they're trying to tell Lassie, look, you got the wrong guy. And Lassie doesn't believe them. He says the case is closed. We also find out how impressed Uncle Burton is. And he tells the guys that Gus is like a regular Rockford Files. And this is like one of a long list of old police shows that he's referenced throughout the show. And Sean says he's like a crazy encyclopedia of detective shows. I bet he even saw Manimal.
And then Gus in that
We will-
scene goes like, "I think you're right." He's like, "You think he saw Manimal?" He's like, "No."
just wait until later when you guys find out what Manimal was. I can't even. Once I researched it, I was like, you got to be kidding me. But okay. So anyway,
I
Gus
think I know what it is.
Gus wants to finish this case because he wants to impress Uncle Burton. Okay, so
Manimal.
yeah. So they decide that they need to head back to the
Oh,
newspaper office or head to the newspaper office because they need to find out if anyone else was, other than the wife and the chef at the restaurant, who else could have had a motive to kill this guy?
hold on. With Manimal, I'm getting a very like serious black type of vibe here. Is that what this is? Is that what this is? No, really?
Oh,
Oh, so it's not about a man that turns into a dog and solves crime?
oh, no, yes, it is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, yes, it is. It is. We're gonna keep this in or no?
It's like a Tim Allen movie.
Are we gonna keep this part in or are we just
Yes.
talking?
Yes.
No, just wait. I have stuff to say about it.
Okay.
We'll
All
do
right.
it in
All
our
right.
80s references section.
All right. I couldn't go on without at least knowing. Okay.
No,
All right.
it's really it was bad. Okay. All right. So where are we at here? Yeah, so we're back at the newspaper. We're at the newspaper.
hmm Uh, so at the newspaper, we find out that uh, the assistant to the victim has collected a binder full of hate mail, essentially, and they call it the Angry Chef letters. And it ranges from like mild dislikes to "I want to see you dead in a ditch somewhere." And they realize that they have a whole binder full of suspects, but
Can we take a
only a
second?
few of them are threatening, murder.
We
Mm.
we, we have to take a second to talk about the assistant. Cooper was his name.
Yeah, he was very
Why?
flamboyant.
Okay, wait. Why in every scene does he just look disgusted? He looked just like disgusted talking about anything. He was only happy when he brought out that binder of people that did not like that man.
I think he probably made the binder.
he, he probably had a page in it for himself, but he just looked so upset and
Although I
disgusted
gotta say,
all the
it's
time.
kind of shoddy binder work. There were not even any dividers in
Right.
there, no
Right.
labels. They weren't separated by severity of anger.
Yeah.
It's messy.
Little lack of organization there on Cooper's part, but I just thought that actor was really funny. Like even at the end when they show him again,
hmm
you just the look on his face
Yeah,
every
he's
time you
got a
saw
bit
him
of
was like,
disdain.
like, it was just bad.
hmm
Well, after they find this out, they decide that they have to go to some of these restaurants. They need
Like
to
the
make
worst ones, like the
reservations.
worst
Yeah.
letters.
Yeah, they gotta make reservations and go see these people. Well, this turns into this montage of them eating everywhere. They
hmm
eat what? Jambalaya, lobster, noodles,
Sushi.
uh, tiramisu, all sorts
hmm
of things. There really, I
There's a
just
lot of
watching it was a lot. It was a lot.
hmm
But it was a
But
cute
one of the
montage.
chefs do point out here, though, we do actually get some useful information. One of the chefs do point out that they didn't understand why he was so angry. He had
Mhm.
an amazing job. He literally got paid to eat out at fancy restaurants all day and just to, judge them
Yeah,
and write about them. And this gave them an idea that he was super lucky and that job is actually maybe worth killing over to somebody
exactly. So now they're trying to figure out who at the paper wanted his job. And to make this happen,
to get his in at the paper.
because the editor will not talk to anyone unless they work there. Sean says, well, I guess one of us is going to have to get a job at the paper. So he goes and gets the job as the new astrological forecaster, writing horoscopes.
Yes, so he writes all the horoscopes for everybody and posts them, and then he later asks Gus what he thinks about them, and Gus is like, "They were awful. Horoscopes are supposed to be vague so people can interpret them any way they want. Yours are all way too specific."
I wrote the horoscopes with specific people in mind. So like, Lassie's horoscope, they showed Jules reading it. Lassie's horoscope said to walk to walk backwards through doorways for good luck.
That's because
And
they
he
wrote them
does
with
it.
specific people
He
in mind.
starts doing it. And then and then my favorite, I love this one. He wrote Jules, and it says, this is so good for this episode. He says,
Your true
your
love.
one true love will be wearing sneakers and an Apple Jacks t-shirt. And that's what he was wearing. It was so cute. It was so cute. I love it.
We will also find out that they have one for Henry, but I wish
Yes.
that they did one for Chief Vic and Buzz. Missed opportunities.
Well, I mean, they only have so much time, I guess, but
Yeah, but
um
I think it could have been fun. Mm,
okay, so then they go to a part in this episode where they're doing the thing where they have to figure out how to say a
the
certain
correct
word
saying.
again.
Yeah,
Yes. So in this one, it's soothsayer. So they go into the editor's office at the paper, and Sean says, wow, you must have a lot of applications for this position that's opened up now for the food critic. And can I can save you time by using my soothsayer services. And then he looks at Gus and goes, soothsayer, and Gus goes, sooth services. And so I like when they're trying to figure out how to say something. It's funny.
hmm
But anyway, the editor lets Sean help, and they start talking about how many applicants there are for it. And, Gus is like, there must be over 100 here. Like, how are we going to go through this? Well, Sean very quickly decides, well, you know what? There's something we can do other than this. So they go talk to a mushroom farmer.
and they assume that
And
they would have seen the person who got the mushroom.
exactly.
Right.
Yes. And this farmer is like crazy. He clearly, when he gives them the description of the other person that came to ask about these a couple weeks ago, he had been eating a lot of mushrooms that maybe he shouldn't have eaten when he gives this description, but he says that there was a man that asked about them who was 6 foot tall and or I'm sorry, 9 feet tall, and had sunshine coming out of his mouth and a hippo for a hand. All right. So after they talk to this guy, they're driving home. Gus is clearly mad that they have spent 2 hours driving to the mushroom farm. And Sean says, don't be such a gloomy you, Gus.
I missed that. I don't know how I missed that.
Such a gloomy you, Gus. And when they walk into the psych office, Henry is sitting there reading his horoscope that Sean wrote for him.
I
In
loved it.
the horoscope, he called him a cranky pants and said that he wanted his BB gun back that Henry confiscated when he was in second grade.
That's such a perfect Sean thing. Like he's really holding on to
It
that.
really is. It really is. He's
And
like,
the
how can
fact that
I screw
Henry
to him
still
without
has
talking
it.
to him?
Yeah, and the fact that Henry still has it. He has a box of his stuff that he confiscated. He just never gave it back.
There's a skateboard and
A BB gun,
uh
a slingshot,
a slingshot. Yes, it was funny.
stuff he
But
took.
Henry also helps them with the case here. he tells them about the veggie burger incident with the critic. And I love this line. Henry says here, "You eat a burger without beef in it, and you've lost the right to complain about flavor."
Yeah, this is one of those things that might not have aged too well. Um,
Well, yeah.
especially how in
I
this
still
next
believe
thing.
it. I'm sorry for any vegans or vegetarians out there, but I
No, is
totally
what it
get
is.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is also actually the other line that they had in here was about how uh I can't even remember his name. Julio, what was his name? The
Oh,
guy that they
right.
think is the guy that was the chef.
Oh,
Um,
I don't remember his name.
he
Vincent or something?
apparently he essentially took the veggie burgers and cooked them in like beef broth or like
He
beef
added
stock.
beef broth to them, yeah.
Right, and he like, and Sean was like, he secretly fed meat to vegetarians. Are we trying to arrest this guy? Probably wouldn't sell too well these days.
No.
More people are on the vegetarian train now. So,
Exactly.
but yeah,
Exactly.
so that was a funny scene.
Mhm. Well, they go to where this woman is because Henry says, "I saw her at the dry cleaner the other day." And,
Drive through.
oh, yeah. Anyway. And, so Sean's like, well, she's really not going to still be there. And next thing you know, they're walking up on her and she's got herself chained to a pole and outside of this burger restaurant. And, she's like protesting. She's been there for 3 days, which would, like, the timeline would make it where she would have been available. And they asked her what she was doing the day that the critic died, and she says that she was at his restaurant, at the restaurant he was at, and doing a protest. And so they think, "Oh, this has to be the person." And so while they're there, Jules and Lassie show up, and Jules looks at Sean's shirt and sees that he's wearing the Applejack shirt. And she's like, okay, there were a couple things about this scene. First of all, we learn that, well, because she asks Sean, "Did you just get that today?" And he's like, "No, I've had this forever. I collected box tops." And Gus
Remember
is like,
this,
"No, you
Gus?
didn't." And he's like, "Remember when you got your Cabbage Patch?" And that's all he says. That's all. Gus is like, "Yeah, you've had it forever." And then
Like, yeah,
the
I saw
whole
it. He vouched for
scene.
him.
Oh yeah, the whole scene. Even Lassie comes over and is talking to them. And throughout the whole scene, Jules is looking, if you notice, she's looking at Sean's shirt the whole time, which I thought was so cute. Like she was like really overwhelmed by the fact that he had this shirt on. And you could oh, I don't know. I just love them and I want them to be together, Matt. It's upsetting that they have all these near misses. It's just frustrating. But I thought it was interesting that we found out that Gus had the Cabbage Patch doll. Anyway.
Yeah.
We also then see Lassie walking into the restaurant backwards.
hmm I love the scene because you see Juliet who knows what he's doing, and she's got this like loving smile, like, "Oh,
Uh,
Lassie."
and she's like, "Let me go help him." He goes
Yeah.
through the door backwards and runs into a bunch of stuff. And
hmm
she's like, "Let me go help him."
Yep. So
That was
I like
good.
that. That was nice.
Yeah. So Gus wrongly accuses the vegan vigilante in front of his uncle. Okay, so his uncle
Like
has brought
wrap
this
up style. Like he
postcard.
full on
Oh yeah.
accuses.
Yeah,
hmm
he believed that he was saying the right thing, and his uncle had this postcard that he had written to family about how great Gus is and like he's done this. And when Lassie walks up and says it
It
wasn't
couldn't have been him.
her,
Yeah, or her.
somebody was seen discarding these mushrooms because a homeless person died, and the person who was seen discarding them in the alley was a 6 foot tall man. And so they know that it wasn't her. And Uncle Burton tears up the postcard. That is just devastating to Gus. He's like, this is not good.
hmm
Yeah.
He
Okay.
in
So
this
we see him
scene,
at
he
12.
also
Mhm.
in this scene, he when he tears it up, he immediately throws out everything that's happened so far, and he's like, "Psychic, bogus," and then he walks
Mhm.
away like with the torn up cards. Like, come on, like you just give it all up because he's like made one mistake. Well, it was a little much, little
Well,
much.
I
But
mean,
I do
Gus has
like the way
set
that
high
he
standards.
he played it. Like he had that
Yeah.
perfect like that the acting wise he kind of played that perfectly. He had the perfect like bogus. I don't know. I liked it. He really felt like his uncle. I just liked his casting for
Mhm.
this role.
Well, they've called him down there, and he had to rush to get ready because now they have to take him to the airport. So they're in the Blueberry on the way to the airport, and Gus is just mad that Uncle Burton won't be there to see him actually solve the case. And Uncle Burton is disappointed in Gus, and he actually even says to him that he'd be better off without Sean. And then he actually gives Sean a clue about the hippo logo. So the mushroom guy had said the guy had a hippo for an arm. And then Sean remembered that there was a hippo logo on
The food
the
critics or no
no,
the
on the
editor's
editor's
assistant.
assistant. Nick, the editor's assistant, was also eating Cheetos. And it
Mhm.
all became clear to Sean about the man with sunshine coming out of his mouth and the hippo for an arm. So he whispers up to Gus on the other side, like, here's the deal. This is what happened. So Gus just turns the little blueberry around and he's like, sorry, we're not going to the airport. It was kind of like a boom moment, you know? And Gus
Yeah,
wants, they're back to the newspaper office. They're there. Gus really wants to surmise this whole thing for everyone, but just yell out some stuff and I'm going to translate. And he does one of my
I
favorite
love
things
this
in this
part. I
scene.
was so excited. Like I've seen this before so many times. It's crazy that I felt like this, but I was literally excited. Like I felt like this was like the last scene of the Avengers movie where they're all like lined up ready to fight each other, and like we're in this wrap up, and I was like, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?" And then he
Yeah.
puts his hand on his head, and I
Well,
was like,
at first
"Oh,
Gus yells
oh."
out some strange words, but he's like, key laces, shoe boys, pineapples. And then Sean puts his hand right on his head and says, magic head.
And Gus, in a moment of desperation, is like he just goes with it, and he
He
puts his
goes with
hand
it.
on Sean's head.
But then they start hitting each other on the back of the head and like
Oh yeah,
hitting each other's arms and like doing a burn and
yeah,
like
yeah. He does the
kicking them.
twist where he like
Yeah.
pulls out all of his arm hair when he twists his hands around
Yes.
it, and they're slapping each other. This is easily. I listed this as one of the most ridiculous wrap ups so far. That they
Yeah, they
just
were
keep
like
hurting
beating
each
each other
other.
up.
Yeah,
They
they're
were beating
taking
each
turns
other
like
up.
hitting each other.
Yes. But I love it because they finished off with a fist pump.
hmm
And then Nick is arrested. Oh,
Wait,
yeah.
wait. Did you say fist pump?
Or I'm sorry, a fist bump. Fist bump?
Fist
Did I
bump,
just
Barb.
yeah, fist bump.
Fist bump.
I'm sorry. I was in a
But
moment.
when Sean put his hand on his head, I was really excited. I love that part. It was
Yeah.
super cool, and I don't know why I was so giddy when it finally got the build up, but I guess I was excited for Gus to get his validation, and I was also excited to see like this like perfectly timed thing happen.
Mhm.
But
Well,
yeah,
because
they accused the guy, and then he actually ended up selling himself out because he said, Mad Moody, Mad Mushroom Moody or whatever is not gonna,
mhm,
nobody's gonna believe him. He's nuts. And then Carlton's like, I don't think anybody said his name. Arrest him, and that's when he got taken away.
yeah.
hmm
And now Uncle Burton is proud again. He's happy and
Super
Sean's
excited. Yeah.
but then Sean invites Jules to celebrate with dinner and drinks. And she is or he is shut down and that made me very sad. I was glad Sean tried, but it made me very sad. But you know what? It's just not their moment yet. I just have to keep telling myself, it's just not their moment.
Yep. Not yet. Anything worth having is worth the working for.
Yeah, I'm sad about it, but okay, it's fine. It's whatever. Jules comes back. You can tell I'm a little bitter, but she comes back in and tells them that there was a bank robbery downtown. And I love this because Uncle Burton's like, "Wait for me. I'm gonna go too. I'm coming along." He's like, "I don't care that I missed my plane. I'm all good. Take me to the bank robbery."
Yeah.
So that was kind of cute. And then they end this episode outside of the psych office, putting Uncle Burton into a cab. And there were a couple funny things. The
Yeah. So
contract.
one of them was that uh, following what they talked about in the psych office before, Sean went ahead and like officially, like he had a folder for it and everything, typed up the agreement for the non-psychic assistant and what their role and responsibility is in this partnership. And he's like, you know what, you can just go ahead and sign it, and I'll sign it, and we'll be done. And this almost caused, and obviously it was filled with like all the cleaning responsibilities and the organizing and the stuff that really I'm sure Gus does already anyways. But um he didn't end up signing it, and he almost was about to give himself up because he was kind of getting pushed into signing it. And then
Mhm.
Burton jumps in and says, "You know what? You're probably just nervous about how to sign it. You know what? You can sign it any way you want. Burton, Gus, it's all fine with me. You're carrying on our family name and restoring our keeping our legacy going." So it was a really good ending. It was very touching, and it was a good thing for Gus.
Mhm.
hmm
Yeah, he felt happy again about the way his family would think about him. It was nice.
So, Barb, what did you think about the episode? Well, first off, pineapple rating.
Okay, so I have been going back and forth about this since I watched it earlier today. My initial grade was a 3 pineapples. And then I went, and now should it be 4? And then I've gone back and forth. This is one of those cases where I wish I had a 3.5. But I liked it better than I remembered that I did. But nothing major happened in this episode, really. Like, there wasn't a lot of Henry interaction. There was very little like character development other than Gus. I do believe that Gus learned kind of how hard what Sean does is,
And the
he
pressure, yeah.
right, like that there's pressure and like how do I fake deliver all this stuff to where it's believable and like, you know what I mean? Like I think all of that factors into it. That's what made it good for me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I thought parts of it were unnecessary. The protester, like I feel like they could have put time into something else at that point or I don't know. I think maybe I'll stick with
Feel like
3.
you're leaning towards a 3 there. Okay.
Yeah. How about you? What did you think?
I gave it 4 pineapples. Surprisingly so. Usually I come in just under yours or meet yours. I don't usually go
Oh.
above yours. But I really liked the story for this one. I thought it was unique to having to switch it up, and
Mhm.
I loved that we got to see more of Gus's like family. We got to see his uncle and his interaction with him. That's cool. I thought it
Mhm.
was unique guest star. Well, not unique guest star. I thought it was perfect guest star casting.
Mhm.
I really liked his character.
I agree with that.
I also liked seeing Sean be a good friend and having to like go out on a limb to save Gus this time instead of Gus always saving him and backing him up. I thought that was amazing.
Yes.
And while we didn't get a ton of our support cast, we did get little bits from Lassie, Jules, and Henry, and they were all funny. Between the horoscopes, between the Lassie had a good quip whenever they first, went into the psych office and talked to the chief. Henry had 2 little scenes between his, flashback and his thing with the BB gun was funny.
Yeah.
I thought they all had little parts, and it balanced out pretty well. Obviously, it would have been great to have more of them, but I think it balanced out really well. And I thought the case was a solid case. As far as
Okay.
like somebody was killed, there was a twist. You had to put together some clues. There was a solid trail of clues. So
Yeah.
and lots of humor. So yeah, I like that. There was lots of funny jokes
Yeah.
in this one, a lot of funny scenarios, and I really enjoyed it. So
See,
4 pineapples for me.
you make me wanna raise it, but then I'm like, "No, I'm gonna stick with my original 3." I mean, but it was a compelling argument that you made just now. I mean, I just want you
Mhm.
to know that. It was pretty compelling. Like, bravo.
All right, all right.
You're selling it. I mean,
Hey,
I
it's
don't know.
fine. It's this. We don't have to agree. You're good.
Did you have an "ah, yeah" moment?
Well, obviously, my all yeah moment was with the magic head at the end. I was
Oh, yeah.
so excited. I had an audible reaction to that scene. Yeah,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was super excited.
Mine was the horoscope Sean wrote for Jules.
Okay, but
I
yeah, I could
love
see that
that.
being yours.
I love
All
that.
right.
What
I
about
do have
"Come
a
On,
come on,
Son"?
son. I do have
Oh,
a come
good.
on,
Okay.
son,
Okay.
and it's going to be. I don't know if it's particularly want. I'll sum it up to the one where where Uncle Burton says bogus, psychic bogus, and he just kind of like goes all. But it's kind of a culmination of every time Uncle Burton is like really rude. He's like, if I
Mhm.
wanted to stay in a dirty office, I'd stay home with my wife. Or like every time he like
Well, that
downs
was more
them.
rude to the wife.
Well, yeah. But I mean, every time that he has like a rude comment like that, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
come on, son. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
It's funny because mine is very similar to yours. It was when Uncle Burton tore up the postcard, and that was the
Oh,
same
see?
scene. Same
Yep.
scene. Yeah. I did not have a wait for it moment, did you?
Not really. They really once they found the clue, they got it really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there really wasn't one of those, and I mean, I mean, it might have. Nah, no, I didn't have a wait for it. So, Henry
The
Lessons, we already
yeah,
kind of covered before. You had that one,
a lie always leads to more lies.
and 80 guest stars. All right,
All right.
let me
Here we go.
strap
Get
in real
comfortable, Matt.
quick.
Get comfortable.
Hmm.
Let me just say too, you're going to notice a theme that goes along with this week's 80s references, but there are a couple of bonuses in there.
Okay.
So first we have John Amos. John Amos played Gus's uncle in the episode. He has had a very long career. You're going to know him best from playing James Evans in the show Good Times. And that aired from 1974 to 1979. He was only on the first few years of it, but it was a long-running show that he played the dad on. He was also on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which is, again, before your time, Matt, but
A
most
little
people
bit.
know what that is. And then he also had roles on Fresh Prince, the show Hunter, which ran from 1984 to 1991. I used to love that show. My parents and I watched that show every week. Walker, Texas Ranger. He was in 22 episodes of The West Wing. He was on The Ranch, which we both loved on Netflix.
Hmm.
He
Yeah.
was in a whole lot of other stuff. You'll also know him from the Coming to America movies, 1 and 2, with Eddie Murphy. The first one was released in 1988. So there's your kind of 80s tie-in there.
Yep.
Okay, the next one is Hill Street Blues. This was a 1-hour drama cop kind of show. It ran from 1981 to 1987, and it was created by Stephen Bochco, who later went on to create NYPD Blue. He also created Doogie Howser, MD, with NPH in it. Diagnosis Murder was another reference here. It ran a little bit later than the 80s. We're talking 1993 to 2001. It starred Dick Van Dyke from The Dick Van Dyke Show. He played a medical examiner, and his son, which was played by his son in real life, Barry Van Dyke, was a detective, so they solved cases together. Scott Baio, 80s heartthrob, also joined that cast a little bit later in the show. Ghost Whisperers aired from 2005 to 2010. It starred Jennifer Love Hewitt and Cameron Manheim, about a person that could communicate with the dead and sometimes solve murders. The Rockford Files, another 1-hour show that starred James Garner, which you would know from maybe 8 Simple Rules and definitely from The Notebook. The Rockford Files aired from 1974 to 1980, and Garner played an ex-con turned private investigator. Here we get to Manimal. Manimal. Manimal was about a man who could change himself into any animal and fight crime.
Okay.
Now, it is.
All right.
It was on in 1983, and big surprise, it only lasted 8 episodes.
Okay. Yep.
Are you as surprised as me?
Nope, not at all. Especially in 1983. Must
I
have been
mean,
some great CGI they had back there.
I laughed. I laughed so hard when I was reading about it, and all I could think was, I'd really like to see what an episode of that looked like,
Oh,
because
I'm
it was
sure it's out
probably
there.
horrible.
Yeah.
It was probably horrible. Okay. We'll move on now, but that was funny to me. Matlock, 1986 to 1985 was when it ran, so a good long run. This starred Andy Griffith. Please tell me you know who Andy Griffith is.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
good.
I've
So
seen his show.
okay, the Andy Griffith Show.
Yeah. Thought it was the same guy. I wasn't sure. Yeah. No,
Don
no,
Knotts was in it,
don't
who
do it.
we
Don't sing it.
referenced last time. Okay. Anyway, he played a prominent lawyer who charged $100,000 to take on any case, and he and his associates would solve the crimes for the people they were defending.
Mhm.
The next reference here is surprisingly not a show. There was during the montage of them eating at all the restaurants, the song I Want Candy was playing. This was released in 1982 by the British band Bow Wow Wow and was a remake of a 1965 song recorded by the Strangeloves. And this song in 1982 went into the top 50, but it's crazy how it like went on. I think like Aaron Carter released it again later or something. Somebody did. But it was very popular. It made this band like a one-hit wonder kind of thing. We also talked about Cabbage Patch dolls in this episode. Gus apparently had a Cabbage Patch doll. This toy was extremely popular and sought after in 1983. It created a frenzy. It was one of those things I remember. Well, I wanted one because like they were cool. They look different and each came with like a birth certificate. But I remember when Mimi, that was my mom, Matthew's grandmother, she worked at Toys R Us during the height of this, and people were actually getting in fist fights over these dolls.
Mhm.
It was incredible at the time. So it was all
Yeah, I heard
anyone
about
was
that.
talking about. Really, really big. Next we're going to talk about Murder, She Wrote. This was a 1-hour drama starring Angela Lansbury. She was a mystery writer, Jessica Fletcher, and she solved crimes. That show ran for 12 years from 1984 to 1996. There was a reference to The Fall Guy in that was another detective type show, aired from 1981 to 1986. Lee Majors played a stuntman that was also a bounty hunter. Lee Majors was an actor, very, very popular in the 80s. At one time, he was married to Farrah Fawcett Majors. He is best known for playing the $6 Million Man, the star of The Fall Guy, but he was also on the Bionic Woman show. And he began his career back in 1964, but is still acting today, has had various recent guest spots on shows like Weeds, Grey's Anatomy, and Hawaii Five-O.
Funny you should mention that. I had a couple. I
Okay.
picked up some of the ones that you had, but there was also a
Mhm.
mention of the RoboCop movie release
Oh,
in
okay.
the past scene, and also in the past scene, Gus was wearing an apron with Cookum Dano, which was a Hawaii Five-O reference from
Cool.
1968.
Very cool.
Yep, that's
Wow.
right. I got some. I'm proud.
Did you I know, good for you.
A lot of work went into those.
I know, right? Did you find the pineapple in this episode, Matt?
I did not, and I do not accept saying the word pineapple as a hidden pineapple.
Okay, well, that's the only thing that I could find too. I didn't find one. And I
Nope,
even
that
went
does not
back.
count.
Okay, I'm gonna say I went back because I thought to myself, logically, where would this be? I went to every scene where there
Every
was a
kitchen?
restaurant or
Yep,
food or
I was
anything
looking.
like that, and could not. And then the victim's kitchen everywhere did not find one pineapple.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think they had one in this one, but I don't accept saying pineapple as a
Well, at
hidden
least it
pineapple.
was there somehow.
Eh, I don't say it.
There weren't
Gus
any.
nicknames.
Yeah, I don't
Nope.
think there were any other than when he called him
Magic Head
Magic
was a
Head.
callback to season 1, so I
Right.
don't consider that to be one.
Okay. Did you
And
have
we
a
already
favorite
did
quote?
have a quote. I liked yours. I
Yeah.
liked yours.
Henry says, "You eat a burger without beef in it, you've lost the right to complain about flavor."
I think it's a really
Spot
good
on,
one.
Henry. You go,
I'm also
Henry.
a really big burger guy. I love burgers. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
right?
I'm with it. All
Yeah.
right, so how does this episode hold up over time?
It holds up pretty good. I mean, I don't think there was anything in there that was particularly dated. I mean, you still have food critics going to
Yeah,
restaurants
everything
and
is
rating
still
them.
good. I mean, everything holds up very well, I think. I don't think there was
Yeah.
really anything to complain about. Um,
Mm,
yeah, all the humor was good. All the scenarios were realistic and accurate. I
yeah.
think we're good. Yeah, I liked it.
Alright. So that wraps up this episode. On the next episode, we're going to talk about season 2, episode 7. If you're so smart, then why are you dead?
I love this episode. Geniuses in the mix. I love this episode. This episode is so good. I love the cast that they got. The kids are good. All of it. It's all great.
I'm telling you, this
Um,
is a good season.
yep. But make sure you check us out in our Facebook group. We Know You Know, a podcast about psych. We have links to all of this stuff down and below to make it easy for you. Check
Mhm,
out our Reddit group as well. We're starting up on there, and there's
mhm.
a big following on there as well.
Yeah, really, but I'm bigger than Facebook even.
Yeah,
Crazy. You can also find us on Instagram at the Psych Podcast.
as well as YouTube. We have links in below, and if you search the Psych Podcast with no spaces, it should come up somewhere in the first couple. But yeah, and also
And you
email us.
can, yeah, you can always email us at thepsychpodcast@gmail.com. We love your emails.
Yep.
Keep them coming.
So thank you guys for listening all the way through. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to follow us, and we hope you guys have been, following along, watching the episodes before we do the podcast. Keeping up.
And we hope you guys have a great week. Come hear us again next week.
Have a
Bye.
good night.